Hi, welcome to Chavista Chronicles from Caracas. This is episode number 3. My name is Jesus Rodriguez. This week we're going to talk about economy, some important Chavista debates, U.S. aggression, of course, and some international issues. If you ask me, this week has been a slow week in terms of events and news for Venezuelan standards, at least. But anyway, let's start talking about the economy. And in this particular area, I have to say that the most important thing affecting Venezuelans is the inflation. I mean, the hike in prices is incredible, and that's of course have a toll on Maduro's government, on Maduro's approval ratings. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that, but just to mention that inflation is the thing affecting most of the Venezuelans in recent days because of the devaluation, and we already talked about that last week. This week, as we were expecting, there was a lot of analysis on Maduro's economic plan from August 2018 because this month was the first anniversary of this last economic plan announced by Maduro a year ago, and there were several pieces criticizing the results of this plan. So is that at the beginning we were expecting a lot of things out of that plan. I believe, if you ask me, that the most positive element was the containment of the inflation in the months of February, March, April, May, and June. But in July and August, things are going back to craziness. So that's having effects in people's minds that are already affected by, all the economic problems, all the problems in services, and all the problems as a consequence of the U.S. aggression. And it's important to highlight that some of this criticism or analysis made in relation to this economic plan, sometimes they like that recognition, at least, of the effects of U.S. sanctions on the economic performance in Venezuela. If you ask me, one of the pieces that I like the most was one from Jessica dos Santos that we posted this week. So I encourage you to take a look at that, article. And it's important also to highlight that because of this situation, Maduro have decided to launch again the bonuses program connected to Carnet de la Patria with Patria system. The last of those bonuses, I believe, was sent in in December last year, and finally this month, a few days ago, actually, President Maduro announced sending 50,000 bolivars, which is equivalent to $3. But at least here that helps some people buy at least 1.5 kilo of chicken, maybe 2 kilos of chicken and 2 kilos of meat. So, but that's something. So Maduro decided this, if you ask me, because of the pressure that the high government is feeling because the people are like complaining a lot about this situation. And the next thing that is going to happen is an increase in the wages that, if you ask me, it's going to happen soon, maybe this week or the next one, but I don't give it more than 2 weeks to an announcement from Maduro increasing the wages that also has been very constrained. I mean, in August last year, the minimum wage was somehow anchored to half a petro, which is like 30 bolivars, $30 a month. Currently, the minimum wage is something around like $3 or $5 if you take bonuses and things like that. So it's complicated, the situation for most Venezuelans that live out of a check. There of course, the other important thing that I want to talk about is the debates among Chavismo. Within this crisis, this economic crisis, a lot of Chavistas are questioning why President Maduro has not taken advantage of the crisis to deepen the revolution, as in most revolutions in history and worldwide. So there's a lot of debate. We have read several pieces in relation to that particular issue, and if you ask me, I believe that it's important to recognize that disregarding the economic crisis and U.S. sanctions, Maduro's government has not taken radical measures in order uh, to deepen the revolution, to deepen socialism. Uh, so I believe that it's important to highlight this debate, and the other important debate is connected to the government inefficiency or the incapacity to tackle the crisis, and that somehow is connected to the economic crisis because there's a like stampede of uh, good cadres uh, in the government that have left the country or have decided not to keep working for the government because you cannot survive with the salaries that the government is paying. So that creates a bureaucracy of very inefficient Venezuelans that are running most of the social programs, most of the government programs, and that creates a problem because the inefficiency is evident, and that's why I believe Maduro took the decision a couple of weeks ago to change the cabinet. So let's see what happened in that relation. But if you don't solve the economic crisis, it's gonna be hard to deal with improving efficiency within the government. And when I talk about the government, I'm talking about government, social programs, services, because most of utilities in Venezuela are run by the government, so it's complicated. And of course, those that remains in the public sector are like lack of revolutionary commitment and an abundance of panphetary politics, which is basically like screaming here and there that you love socialism and that you love the revolution, but doing it and acting in a different way. So that's something important in the debate within Chavistas these few weeks. And there's a nice piece that we posted about that from Jose Negron Valera that I believe that if you're interested, you have to read. Now I have to talk about U.S. aggression. This week, the attacks on Tareck el Aissami were, if you ask me, what's the most important element from the U.S. aggression. I mean, they basically a few days ago put a bounty on the head of Tareck el Aissami, which is the vice president for economy. And a few weeks before, they put him in this ICE most wanted list or something like that. So basically, like in a daring move by Aissami, he showed up in a TV show run by Diosdado Cabello, and he made a nice speech about commitment and pride of being part of the Bolivarian Revolution, of being a Chavista minister, and somehow saying, listen, guys, I'm here. If you want to come and get me, I don't care. I'm going to keep my commitment to the revolution. I'm going to keep my work. So I believe that in terms of U.S. aggressions against Venezuela, that was an important event this week. of course, the announcement again by the Southcom of talking about the readiness to do a deployment in Venezuela whenever it is required, basically uh, launching military threats against Venezuela again, and that somehow creates some sort of um, skepticism amongst Venezuelans in terms of how real are U.S. Threats, because this is like the third or fourth time this year that the same guy, the head of the South Command, has been launched against Venezuela. And in the other side, we have the strengthening of the cooperation with Russia, and the visit of Vice President Delcy Rodriguez, the Minister of Defense Vladimir Padrino, and they signed several agreements in different areas. But of course, the most important is the military cooperation that has been strengthening, because if a country is attacked or threatened to be military attacked, that country, I mean, I'm talking about Venezuela, needs to do whatever it takes to strengthen its military capability, and that's why we have been counting it with Russia, and they have been, responding in a very positive way. If you ask me, disregarding whatever, for example, a few days ago there was this announcement about the readiness of Russia to deploy missile systems in Venezuela, and a lot of people, even some liberals, say that this was going to be a reedition of the Cuban crisis. The first thing that we have to say is that we are not in the 60s, I mean. So we're not going to have a Cuban missile crisis like the one that happened in the 60s between Khrushchev and Kennedy and Fidel Castro. But we don't see with bad eyes. Most of Venezuelans, we don't see with bad eyes that we receive the help of Russia to defend ourselves. This is different. The case, I mean, the origins of the, if you ask me, of the Cuban missile crisis is a little bit different from the origins of this particular situation between Russia, Venezuela, and the U.S. currently. So from the other side, the last issue in talking about U.S. aggression is that the U.S. has been promoting division among Chavista, and they are not going to make that. That's not going to happen. I mean, they have been trying to create some sort of friction between Diosdado Cabello, which is the second in command among Chavista leadership, and Nicolás Maduro. And if you ask me, I don't see that as a real possibility. I mean, some sort of disruption or friction between those two leaders. So they are wasting their time. They are applying their bullying, policy, but that won't take them anywhere. And talking about international issues, just to finish this episode, the most important element, of course, was the problem with the fires in the Amazon jungle, and the decision of Evo Morales to address the problem, at least from whatever part of the Amazon they are responsible for, was great, and especially if you compare it with what Jair Bolsonaro has been doing from the Brazilian side. So that says a lot, and I believe that's like a nice move from Evo Morales to address this problem in a very fast and effective and visible way. From the other side, we have the problems in Hong Kong with China and this struggle with the U.S., the trade war, and also the corporate censorship applied by YouTube, Google, Twitter, trying to censor uh, news outlets connected to the Chinese government that are trying to present the other, side of the story, and that take us to the issue of press freedom, and that's gonna be interesting. What's gonna happen around that issue, because if the media corporations keep doing what they have been doing in recent months, not only in China but also in Venezuela, in Iran, and in several other countries, people are going to realize what they are. I mean, what these media are, and I believe that eventually that's gonna destroy the empire of Facebook and Google, at least of Twitter, at least in terms of media and spreading of information. And the last thing that we want to talk about is Argentina, and how happy we are because of the developments in Argentina and all the mistakes committed by Macri after the primary elections. And as we see it, there's no chance for a defeat of Kirchnerismo and Peronismo in Argentina in next elections in October. So we are very happy and expecting a victory, which is gonna mean a blow of fresh air for Venezuela, and of course it's gonna have an impact in elections in Uruguay and Bolivia, and we hope that maybe provoke a swift and the right-wing control of several governments in the region. Thank you for listening to us, and we'll keep you updated next week about what happened in Venezuela. Bye-bye.